Hi everyone, I'm Theo Rutherford, wine educator for Deutsch Family Wine and Spirits. Now today, I want to talk to you about Sonoma and what makes its wines so unique. Sonoma is one of the largest AVAs in California and makes almost twice as much wine every year as Napa. Sonoma is an incredible place to grow grapes for all sorts of reasons. But let's actually take you there so you can see. For this, I'm going to bring in a good friend of mine, winemaker for the calling, James McPhail. So to start, let's talk about what makes Sonoma so special. James, as a Sonoma-based winemaker, why is Sonoma such a great place to grow grapes and then make wine?
Thanks, Theo. Hi, everyone. I'm James McPhail, winemaker for the Calling Wines based in Healdsburg and Sonoma County. Sonoma is unique due to three main growing characteristics, also known as what the French describe as terroir. One of the things that makes Sonoma so interesting for a winemaker is the varied microclimates that allow for a diverse range of expressions. You can find really distinct wines from areas that are geographically very close to one another. One of the most important factors when we talk about microclimates in Sonoma is proximity to the Pacific Ocean, which has a major cooling effect on the vineyards in the Sonoma Coast AVA and also on the Russian River Valley, where cooling ocean breezes blow in through the Petaluma Gap, again helping cool climate grapes like Chardonnay and Pinot Noir to maintain their freshness. Fog is also a major environmental factor, and it cools down a region that might otherwise be very warm for grape growing, allowing grapes to ripen more gradually and maintain their acidity. The second growing characteristic that makes Sonoma unique is the soil, which varies greatly throughout the region. We'll talk more about the gold-rich soil that Chardonnay loves in the Russian River Valley and the gravelly soils of Alexander Valley when we start tasting. On the Sonoma coast, you have soil derived from marine deposits from 3 to 5 million years ago. This soil is the result of the subduction zone, where basically one of the tectonic plates under Sonoma slipped underneath the neighboring plate, lifting the entire Sonoma coast from the coast to Sebastopol out of the ocean. This was millions of years ago, and today you can still see the layers of soil that have formed on top of these marine deposits over the years, so that if you were to dig a hole where I'm standing, you could see different colors of soil that reflect the different ages that took place and add great complexity to the wines. And then finally, the third characteristic that makes Sonoma unique is the topography. This is the key ingredient to all of the microclimates. In some parts of Sonoma, you have gentle rolling landscapes that allow the fog to travel in from the Pacific and cover the region. In other parts, you have much steeper slopes that protect vines from fog and wind, creating warmer pockets for growing Cabernet Sauvignon.
Sonoma really is perfect for grape growing. Because of all the factors that James talked about, there are 18 AVAs in Sonoma. And across those AVAs, there's 64 unique varietals grown throughout the region. But there are a few that are particularly special here, like Chardonnay, which finds great expression in the cool climate region. For instance, Sonoma actually has a large diurnal shift, so the fog and cool maritime air actually come in each night like clockwork and stabilize the chemistry of the fruit, preserving the acidity that was actually created during the day. Now, James, can you tell us a little bit about why Chardonnay does really well in this cool climate region?
Absolutely. Sonoma is a cool climate location, and it has a lot of characteristics that make it perfect for growing Chardonnay. Another example is the soil makeup. The varied soils are great for Chardonnay, which is mostly grown on sandy loam, gold-rich soil that is high in pH and very well drained, as grapevines do not like to have wet feet. It can also be nutrient-rich, adding complexity. The Calling Dutton Ranch Chardonnay is pretty reflective of the Russian River Valley where it's grown. This wine comes from a selection of 8 Dutton-owned and farmed vineyards within the Green Valley appellation, a cooler section of the Russian River Valley. The Dutton family has been farming in Sonoma since the 1880s. Originally, they were apple farmers, and apples covered most of the agricultural land in the Green Valley AVA. But the Duttons led the region in beginning to convert these orchards to vineyards, and now they are one of the most important vineyard owners in Sonoma, arguably the most important in the Russian River Valley. If you all want to taste the Dutton Ranch Chardonnay with me, hopefully you like it. You'll notice that this wine has some weight and texture due to sur-lie aging and batonnage, or stirring of the lees, in barrel as the wine ages. The creamy mid-palate is also due to bottanage and to full malolactic fermentation to help temper the acid and mound out the wine a little. The result in the glass is a rich and round wine. This is due in part to cooper selection. I'm very careful with the barrels I bring over from France. This Chardonnay is aged in 30% French oak. Now, to contrast that style with a slightly cooler region in Sonoma, we have the calling Sonoma Coast Chardonnay, which also comes from a selection of vineyards, 6 to be exact, but from a wider geographical area, encompassing all the cool climate zones of Sonoma County, Carneros, the true Sonoma Coast, and Green Valley. Because this is cooler climate, this is made in a slightly fresher, less round style than the Dutton Ranch. The maritime influences like fog, cooler ocean air during day, etc., leave this wine with higher acid that features more prominently in this wine because there's less of an oak influence. So if we taste the Sonoma Coast Chardonnay together, those cool climate elements should be pretty apparent. There's the crisp acidity due to the cooler climate preserving the acidity. This has a leaner and zippier style due to cool climate growing, which results in lower alcohol and fresher, more vibrant, acid-driven wine. This wine was 50% fermented in stainless steel, which also lends to the crispness and freshness. I used a lower percentage of new oak, only 15%, which also backs off the roundness of the palate.
Now, while Chardonnay does really well here, Sonoma is arguably known even more for their amazing Pinot Noirs. So James, why does Pinot benefit from the cooler climate? And actually, why do these two Burgundian clones like the cooler weather?
Well, Theo, that's a great question. Sonoma County Pinot Noir grapes also benefit from a cool climate, though for a different reason than Chardonnay. For starters, Pinot Noir is the most thin-skinned red grape varietal, so it does not like intense solar heat, nor can handle it. Pinot Noir grapevines still need the sun exposure for photosynthesis, chlorophyll maturity, and ripening, but they don't like the solar heat. So, Sonoma County is perfect for Pinot Noir because its proximity to the Pacific keeps the daytime temperatures lower with the maritime air off the Pacific. The sun still shines, but there could be a 20-degree difference between an inland area like Healdsburg and one of our vineyards in the true Sonoma Coast only 10 miles west. We'll use another call-in example to illustrate some of these features. Let's taste Russian River Valley Pinot Noir. I think one of the first things you notice drinking this wine is the bright red fruit focus. This is due to Russian River Valley climate influences. It's a little warmer than the coast, but it's still cooler climate, so the wine isn't overtly ripe. The wine has good weight and texture, which comes from sur-lie aging and bottanage, so aging on the lees and stirring them to enhance the effect. These wines, including this one, also tend to have slightly elevated acidity due to that maritime influence preserving the acidity.
Now, I am a huge fan of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from Sonoma myself. And it's that higher acidity blended with the ripe fruit flavors that make it particularly delicious for me, and especially amazing when you're thinking about food and wine pairings. They are incredibly versatile wines. Now, while I certainly love drinking these, there are also some great Cabernet Sauvignons coming out of the region that rival some of Sonoma's more famous neighbor. Now, Cabernet Sauvignon is a grape that typically enjoys warmer climates. So James, can you actually tell us a little bit about why Cabernet works so well in Sonoma?
Cabernet can thrive in Sonoma because it is such a wide and varied region. AVAs like Alexander Valley and Knights Valley are perfect for Cabernet because they are further inland and the hills block the fog coming in, so there is less cooling influence from the Pacific Ocean. They also have elevation with vines planted on slopes, giving them perfect aspect and sun exposure, allowing the thick-skinned Cabernet grapes to ripen fully. The elevation also allows for that diurnal variation, so you can have hot days for ripening and cold nights for preserving the fruit flavor and acidity.
Now that all makes sense when you taste Cabernet from Sonoma. Now we'll turn to the calling portfolio again to help illustrate this with their Alexander Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. The wine's actually sourced from 5 distinct vineyard sites, primarily within Alexander Valley, where gravelly, well-drained soils famously lead to more concentrated fruit flavors. Now, This rich, fruit-forward style of Cabernet Sauvignon has lots of black and blue fruits and ripe, rounded tannins that reflect the warmer climate necessary to ripen the thicker-skinned Cabernet grape. But it's also really well balanced. It's not overly fruity or tannic. It's actually a more refined, elegant style, due in part to the 18 months that it sees in oak.
We hope we were able to impart some new knowledge and show why Sonoma is such a special region for making top quality Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Cabernet Sauvignon.
Now, that's all for today's discussion on Sonoma County. Thank you for your time. And if you tasted along with us, I hope you enjoyed the Callings Sonoma portfolio.